Hello again, everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is the video that I've been promising many of you, and in some cases warning you about, because we are going to be exploring the passage found in Hebrews chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. Now, I'm going to be upfront and say that not many of us is going to, or not many of you rather, is going to find this particular dissertation as easy to listen to as perhaps some of my other videos. This video is going to contain a lot of technical information, maybe more so than my other videos. Now, I do understand, though, that not everyone is an analyst, or they're not interested usually in delving into word lexicons and commentaries and heavy theology, but that's what this video is going to be quite frank with you. The reason this Bible passage is so important to understand is because there are many sincere Christians that say, and I'll paraphrase, that there is no positive, or rather, since there is no positive command in the New Testament that says that Christians are to observe the seventh-day Sabbath, then we don't have to. Now, there are a lot of people looking for a direct statement of fact, and without that, then they feel justified in not observing Sabbath. Now, what makes this New Testament passage so important is that if it is found to support seventh-day Sabbath keeping, then it would be the most direct passage in all of the New Testament to do so, and thus would satisfy those people who are looking for a solid, factual, positive Sabbath commandment in the New Testament. I firmly believe that upon watching this video, that you will come to the same conclusion that I have, that far from being a statement of a statement of abrogating the Sabbath, that this passage in Hebrews actually speaks to its enduring nature and observance by Christians today. Now, I've read many commentaries out there, I'm sure all of you have as well, regarding this particular passage in Hebrews. Most of them, in my opinion, they have to ignore much of the text and the definitions of the words in order to say that this passage is an abrogation statement against the seventh-day Sabbath. Now, the question that ultimately needs to be answered when we study this passage is very simple. Was the writer of Hebrews referring to a spiritual rest of grace, an anticipated rest which we Christians are looking forward to, or the literal seventh-day Sabbath rest in this particular passage, again, Hebrews 4, verses 1 through 11. So, before we get any further, let's go ahead and read the passage itself. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, As I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on the wise, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief, again he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, Today, after so long a time, as it has been said, Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. For if Jesus had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works, as God did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. Now we'll notice that twice there's a reference made to the seventh day in verse 4, so we know that the seventh day is being discussed here in some way or fashion. Many mainstream scholars contend that the rest being discussed in this passage is actually an abrogation of the seventh-day Sabbath, and what they'll do is they link this particular passage to the rest that Jesus, Yeshua, offered in Matthew 11:28. But I would encourage you, viewers out there, that I have a video. It's called Jesus is My Sabbath Rest, and you'll see that Matthew 11 verse 28 actually doesn't speak to that at all, and that it teaches conclusively that no such link between it and Hebrews 4 verses 1 through 11, that there's no such link that exists. Now, I mentioned commentaries earlier, and how some of these commentaries basically are flawed. One commentary I'd like to put up on the screen for you here is by Matthew Henry, and this is what he had to say in his concise commentary. This rest is a rest of grace and comfort and holiness in the gospel state, and a rest in glory where the people of God shall enjoy the end of their faith and the object of all their desires. The rest, or Sabbatism, which is the subject of the apostle's reasoning, and as to which he concludes that it remains to be enjoyed, is undoubtedly the heavenly rest, which remains to the people of God, and is opposed to a state of labor and trouble in this world. The perspective that Matthew Henry is giving here is echoed in many Christian churches in one form or another. They all kind of parallel each other in many regards. So what I'm going to do is address the points that are purported to show that the seventh-day Sabbath is abrogated in this passage. And obviously my intent is to point out the logical as well as biblical fallacies that is found in this kind of theology. Now, as with any study of biblical text, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know that defining the key words in the passage is very important to me. Because again, if we don't understand the definitions of the words that are being used, we can very easily misunderstand what the passage is trying to teach us. So, let's go ahead and define some of the key words that we're going to find in this text. The first word that I'd like to define is the word katapausis, which is Strong's number, Strong's in the Greek, number 2663. Definition 1 is a putting to rest. 1a, calming of the winds. 2, a resting place. And 2a, metaphorically speaking, and this is one I really want you to hone in on, is the heavenly blessedness in which God dwells, and of which he has promised to make persevering believers in Christ partakers after the toils and trials of life on earth are ended. Now, this word, katapausis, is going to be very important later in this study, so I'm going to ask that you would take those definitions, especially definition 2a, and kind of tuck it back in the back of your mind, because you'll need to be referencing that very shortly. And the reason I ask you to do that is because the type of rest that katapausis gives us is crucial to understand if we are going to understand the full meaning of this particular text. Now, in the Greek, this verse is rendered in this way. In the Greek, Hebrews 4:9 is written, Ara apolai patia sabbatismos tau lau tau theou. In the New King James Version, you can see it's rendered, there remains therefore a rest for the people of God, with apolaipatia translating to remains, and sabbatismos translating to rest. Apolaipatia, Strong's number 620, literally means left behind. Definition number 1, to leave behind. Definition 2, to desert or forsake. Webster's dictionary defines remains, as we saw in the New King James Version on the earlier slide. That word means to continue unchanged in place, form, or condition, or undiminished in quantity, to abide, to stay, to endure, to last. Now, when we get to verse 9, however, we find that other key word, we find that there's another word there for rest. And what we'll find is that word is different than the earlier mentioned katapausis.